Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Shannon and as you can tell by the title of this video, today I'm filming my 1K Q&A video. There are a couple of things I want to say before we get started. Firstly, please excuse the state of me right now. It's been a day. It is currently 8:45 at night, so I'm filming this very late, and yeah, it's just been an extremely hectic day. Secondly, I'm sorry if you can hear any purring in the background. My cat is sat right next to me today, so yeah, please excuse that if you can hear it. And then lastly, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to film this video. It's kind of intimidated me for some reason. I feel like I don't like answering questions about myself, so the thought of doing a full video about it really threw me off. But I finally decided that tonight's the night. If I don't film it today, I never will. So I've got myself a cider, I've got the questions on my phone, and so without further ado, let's just dive into the Q&A. I have actually received a lot of questions, so I will definitely try to get to all of them, but depending on how long this video goes on for, I might have to cut some out and leave them for the next milestone Q&A. If you do ever want to participate in a video like this, please make sure to follow my Twitter account. It's always linked down below, and I always post about stuff like this on there. Most of these questions have come from Twitter, and then I have one or two from Instagram. So yeah, definitely make sure you're following me there. Like I said, I do have the questions on my phone, so I'm sorry if I keep looking down at it. The first few questions I'm going to answer are from Lucy over at Crescent Pages. I absolutely love Lucy and her channel. I will leave her links down below for you guys. Actually, anyone I talk about in this video, I will leave the links to their channels if they have one down below. So definitely go and check them out after watching this video. But Lucy and I are massive Lord of the Rings fans. We chat about it quite regularly, and I just love that I have someone in the community I can turn to and share my love of Tolkien with. And her questions actually do relate to the Lord of the Rings, of course. The first one being, who is my favourite Lord of the Rings character? This is such a difficult question to start off with. You will see during this video how indecisive I am as a person, so I hope you're ready for a lot of different answers. In the films, I'd say my favourite characters are Aragorn, of course. Gandalf is another great one. Pippin is also one of my favourites. He just makes me laugh every time I watch the films. And also Saruman as well. I love his story arc in these films. The books though is a bit more complicated. I feel like I much prefer Frodo and Sam in the books than I do in the film, and I think that's mainly because in the film a lot of stuff is going on with the other characters, and Frodo and Sam are obviously alone on this journey. Don't get me wrong, I love their scenes, but I do prefer when we go back to focus on Aragorn and get in on the action scenes there. But yeah, Frodo in the books really did make me laugh, especially in the first one when he knows that he has to leave Bag End. There is actually quite a good chunk of time between Frodo finding out about the ring and him actually having to leave the Shire, and so in that time period he's trying to discreetly get ready to leave by selling some of his stuff and moving and things like that, and he thinks he's being very clever about it, but then everyone knows what he's doing and that he has to leave. And I think Merry says to him at one point that they all heard him sort of talking to himself and being like, oh, what's gonna happen after I leave, and oh, who's going to look after this when I leave, and this, that and the other, and it just makes me laugh so much. I also feel like Sam's character in the books is definitely a much bigger part. Obviously it is such an integral part of the story that Frodo wouldn't have gotten where he is without Sam, but I feel like in the book you really do see that relationship between them. In the films there's obviously a lot of conflict between Frodo, Sam and Gollum, which is definitely needed and definitely happens anyway, but I feel like those little moments of kinship are what makes the book for me. It's so nice seeing how much Sam cares about Frodo and the lengths he'll go to actually save Frodo from his fate in a way, and I just think that their bond is beautiful and I just love them so much. And then another question I'm going to really struggle to answer is, where would you live in Middle Earth? I've always said I would live in Rivendell. I just love the whole vibe of that place. It's so peaceful and serene, and I just think it would be the nicest place to live. Saying that though, recently I have been thinking how cool it would be to actually live in Lothlorien. If you don't know, that's where Galadriel lives. It's the wooded realm of the elves, and I just think it's so beautiful. And again, it's a place I feel like would just be so serene. You would have such a special connection to nature, and it would definitely bring you some inner peace. So definitely a toss-up between Rivendell and Lothlorien, but if I had to choose one, it would be Rivendell. The next question is actually from Rebecca over at Rebecca Books here on YouTube, and she has asked me who my favourite YouTubers are, including or separate to Booktube. I feel like this list could go on forever, so I am just going to say non-Booktube YouTubers because I feel like my favourite YouTubers are mentioned quite frequently in my videos. On my personal YouTube account, I do actually watch a lot of true crime. It's something I'm very interested in, and it's something that's always fascinated me. So my favourite true crime YouTuber YouTubers would probably be Ellen O'Neill, Kendall Ray, Georgia Marie, and there are also 2 podcasts that I listen to, or rather watch, on YouTube, and that is Mile Higher featuring Kendall Ray and her partner Josh, and then Josh actually has another true crime podcast with his brother Joel called Lights Out, and I love them so much. They are so detailed, definitely show you the darker side of true crime, but they put out the information in a very considerate way, and they do tell it in a way that's informative and not degrading in any way, which is something I do really appreciate. And then non-true crime YouTubers that I watch are people like Surf Does Life. I really like Saffron Barker's videos. I also love watching Carys and James Whittaker. Their videos just make my day. They are such bright and happy people, and I just absolutely love watching their content. And then the only other person I can think of off the top of my head is Ellie Darby. Next up, we have a question from Carys over at Carys's Corner, and she's asked, do you have a favourite book that's written in Welsh? To be fair, I haven't read a ton of Welsh literature. I feel like it is something that's very lacking in the community. There aren't many Welsh books being published, and if they do get published, they're a lot of the same thing. So for me, who reads predominantly fantasy books, I never really find a book that I connect with, and I do also find it quite hard to read because the language is very formal most of the time. I do have one Welsh book that I absolutely loved though. From the minute I read it, I knew it was a favourite book of mine. Since I read it for the first time, I think I've read it every year for the past 5 years. I read it for the first time during my A-levels, and then I studied it throughout all my 3 years at university as well, so I've definitely studied it for 4 years, and I've also reread it a few times just out of personal enjoyment. I don't actually have the physical copy on me to show you guys. I think it's at my mum's house at the minute, but I will pop it up on screen, and that is Un Nos o Leuad by Caradog Pritchard. This is a very hard-hitting novel. It was a groundbreaking novel at the time of its release in Wales because we had never seen anything like it before. It's a novel that deals with the darker side of our community and how people do try to hide that part of their town and things like that. I honestly have no idea how to sum up this book in a coherent way. Even though I've studied it for years, I feel like trying to explain what it's about is very difficult, and just for the sake of me being able to tell you guys what this book is about, I am going to read you the synopsis. This book has been translated into English, by the way, so definitely check it out. I'm not sure how accurate of a translation it is, but the story is just so dark and twisted, but because it's narrated by a little boy, he doesn't see the dark side of the community, he just sees it as things that are normal, and it's very messed up but very interesting. So it does just say on here, in a small Welsh village during the dark days of World War I, a nameless narrator chronicles a year of loss, grief and madness in Caradog Pritchard's One Moonlit Night. Originally published in 1961, this Welsh language novel has been eloquently translated into English by Philip Mitchell, perhaps garnering Pritchard the wide recognition his novels have long enjoyed in his native land. Less a novel than a loosely connected series of tales, Pritchard peoples his fictional world with characters such as Grace Ellen Shoesharp, Will Starch Collard and Johnny Beer Barrel. Wow, it's so strange to say the names in English because I always think of them in Welsh, obviously. It's very weird. Anyway, carrying on with the synopsis. Though One Moonlit Night has its lighter moments, its story is primarily a sad one. The narrator's mother is sent to an insane asylum. One close friend dies of tuberculosis while another moves away. Village men die in the faraway killing fields of the war as the loved ones they leave behind live in unrelenting poverty. Eventually, something terrible happens. In One Moonlit Night, perfection is in the details, the loving evocations of the townspeople and the physical and emotional landscapes they inhabit. Dark as it is at times, Pritchard's tragic tale is leavened by humour and illuminated by prose that is lyrical and deeply stirring. So yeah, a very hard-hitting read, but a very important one, especially in Welsh history, because like I said, this was the groundbreaking novel of our time. Nothing like this had ever been tackled before. All our literature before this point was very flowery, very romanticised, and this did dive into the deep, dark minds of humans, and it did also highlight things like mental illness, which is definitely not talked about as much as it should be, especially in this time period. During this time, if you had a mental illness, you were immediately carted off to an insane asylum and you probably never left, and so it's very interesting to see how this little boy handles it and processes all the information, and it's just such a good book, so I would highly recommend you read it if you can. But yeah, definitely my favourite Welsh book, and I will continue to read it for years to come. The next question is from Leah over at Lover of Pages, and she asks, what's your favourite video you've ever made? This is actually a really difficult one for me, so I am just going to go through some of my videos and tell you guys which ones I enjoyed the most. I feel like I have finally found my groove in terms of what videos I like to film and what types of videos I like putting out there. So anything before the start of this year I don't consider to be amazing in any way, shape or form. I definitely love filming my book hauls. I feel like they're such fun videos to film, and I'm genuinely excited during those videos because I have so many books I want to talk about and share with you guys and recommend, and they always do tend to do really well. I feel like we all turn to book hauls when we don't want to be buying books ourselves, we just want to live through other people. That's what I do anyway, so I do really like filming those videos. Another one is my bookshelf tour actually. It wasn't meant to be a long video. I was originally just going to give you an overview of my shelves, but then it turned into a full-length bookshelf tour, and that one is at 6.9k views, which is by far my most successful video. I don't think anything will ever top that, to be honest with you. Again, I personally do love watching bookshelf tours. I find it so interesting to see the books that people have on their shelves, so I definitely get why that was popular, and I did have a really good time filming it as well. I feel like those are the main videos I want to talk about, otherwise I could go on for a while. Obviously I enjoy creating content and posting videos for you guys, but I feel like in terms of my enjoyment whilst filming and editing and posting and the aftermath as well, I feel like those videos have been my favourites to film, and there has actually been a really good reaction to them as well, which is always nice. Next up we have a question by Kaylee Reads, and she's asked, what made you start Booktube? Did you have any setbacks? Some of you may not actually know, but I did start Booktube about 2-3 years ago, I want to say now. I'd been watching Booktube for a while and I really wanted to post my own videos, but unfortunately I wasn't fully committed to it. I really didn't like editing, I didn't like filming, I felt quite uncomfortable filming, to be honest with you, especially because I was living in uni halls and I was so self-conscious of the fact that people could hear me talking to myself. So I was posting here and there, but it wasn't anything concrete. I didn't have a schedule, it wasn't very consistent, and ultimately it kind of fell apart. However, at the start of last year, obviously COVID happened. I was furloughed for 5 months because of my health. I am asthmatic, and so it is quite dangerous for me to be outside at the minute. So I was at home, I'd basically finished all my uni work, and I was spending all my time reading, and I thought, well, if I'm spending all this time reading, I might as well create videos to talk to people about the books that I'm reading, and that's how it kind of started. And it was actually the time of the Owl's Magical Readathon as well, which is hosted by G over at Book Roast. Don't think it's happening anymore because of the whole drama with that author. I'm not going to mention the name. I think my first video back to Booktube was my Owls TBR video, and like I said, I was reading anyway. I was going to take part in the readathon. It just made sense for me to create content around that whilst I was doing it and whilst I was in the moment. I haven't necessarily had any setbacks this year. I think because I've dedicated a lot of time to my channel, I found it easier to be in that flow of filming and editing and posting, and because I'm staying consistent, I do find it easier, and I think that also reflects in the growth of my channel as well. Next up we have a question from Butterflies on my bookshelf, and that is, what book has been on your TBR the longest? I had to scroll all the way back through my Instagram to find this book, and I have the exact date here, so it was the 30th of May 2015 is when I bought this book, and I feel like this is the oldest one that I still haven't read, and that is Alice in Zombieland by Gina Showalter. I don't know if I will ever get to this book. Every year I say I'm going to pick it up and finally get to it, but I never do. I do have the other books in this series as well. I bought this in the 3 for £5 deal in the works one day. It was when I started watching Booktube videos and I wanted to get in on the hype. Not that anyone had mentioned these books, but I just wanted to read something and just fall back in love with reading a bit. And so I picked up this book, and as you can see, I still haven't gotten around to it. I don't actually have any idea what this book is about, except I'm guessing there's some sort of zombies involved. It doesn't really say anything about it on the back, and there's no clear blurb anywhere in the front either, so can't really tell you what it's about, but I will leave the link to the Goodreads page of this down below for you guys if you do want to know anything else. If you have read this book, please let me know what you thought of it, whether it's worth the read or whether I should unhaul it, because like I said, it's been on my shelf for at least 6 years now, and I feel like that's kind of ridiculous to have not picked it up yet. So this is one that might get unhauled soon. I think I'll give myself an ultimatum where if I don't read it this year, I'll have to unhaul it. So this is the year that I might finally read this book. Next up we have a question from Rachel over at Rachel Carys, and this one just makes me laugh because she just put, can I puppy sit Kiwi? Yes, you can, Rachel. Once this pandemic business is over, you can definitely puppy sit Kiwi for me. She would absolutely love you as well, so I think she'd be glad to be taken away from me. For anyone who doesn't know, Kiwi is my puppy. She's a 13-week-old spring adore, and Rachel is obsessed with her, which how can you not be? She's adorable. Next up we have a few questions from Dee. The first question she asked is, what's the most gorgeous book you have on your shelves? Again, I'm a very indecisive person, so I have 2 books here to show you guys. The first one of those is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is a beautiful book inside and out. I love every single thing about it. It's one of my favourite books of all time, and let me just show you. So to start off with, we have this stunning illustration, and not only that, but this is the naked hardcover of the book. It is beautiful, guys. I cannot stop staring at it. I kind of want to get myself another copy just so I can display one without the dust jacket on, but I do actually have this book facing outwards on my shelves because I just love it so much, and I think it's just the most beautiful book to exist. And then the second book is this stunning edition of The Hobbit. This is one of the first special edition books that I bought. I do actually think you can still get this book on Waterstones at the minute. I have seen it there a few times myself, and again, I'm debating getting myself another copy because I don't know if you can see, but the pages have yellowed a bit from when it was on my old shelves at home. But this is a cloth bound edition, so the front cover looks like that, and then the spine looks like that. And I just think it's the most beautiful book. Of course, we also have the maps on there. Those are some of my favourite things in Tolkien's books. And we also have this illustration of Smaug. And fun fact, when I'm eventually brave enough to get a tattoo, I'm planning on getting this illustration on my foot, just because this book means the absolute world to me. You guys know how much Tolkien's works have impacted my life, and so I do want something permanent to symbolise that. Plus, the Welsh flag does have a dragon on it, so it does kind of symbolise the fact that I'm Welsh, as well as the fact that I'm referencing Tolkien. And then the second question from D is, if you could have an author around for dinner, who would it be and why? After that last spiel, I'll give you 3 guesses who I would choose. Have you guessed yet? You should have by now, and that is, of course, J.R.R. Tolkien. As I was saying, Tolkien's books and the world that he created just means the absolute world to me. I genuinely cannot put it into words. I know people take the mickey out of me all the time for the fact that I reference The Lord of the Rings so much, but it's truly my favourite thing in this entire world, so of course I'm going to be mentioning it 24/7. The sad thing is though, is that The Lord of the Rings was only a tiny little snippet of the mythology that Tolkien created, but because it took him so long to write this obviously massive epic, he died before he got the chance to write any more works in this world, or expansions of this world in a way, because like I said, that was one story within a bigger world, and we just don't have that bigger world to reference, so I would love to ask him what else went on. Of course, we do have different books of his that were published later on by his son Christopher Tolkien. That definitely gives us a deep dive into Tolkien's works and his mind whilst creating those worlds, but it's just so heartbreaking to me that we could have had so much more from Tolkien and from his genius mind, but we never got to see him complete that, which just breaks my heart. I feel like he would actually leave halfway through the dinner though, because he would just be done with all my questions. I feel like I would just have the most expansive list to ask him, and I would make the dinner go on for weeks just so that I could get all the answers that I wanted. And then the last few questions I'm going to answer today are from Emily over at Emily Kathleen Reads, and so she's asked me what the longest and shortest books on my TBR are, and I'm not 100% sure on this one. I definitely think the longest book on my TBR is It by Stephen King, and in terms of shortest books, I don't actually know. I might hop onto Goodreads quickly and see if that has any answers for me. Okay, so yeah, It is definitely the longest book on my TBR, but I'm not sure about the shortest. It says that it's The Camelot Betrayal by Kirsten White, but that's definitely not right because that's a hardcover and it's definitely over 300 pages, so I don't know what that's on about. I do actually have A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and I definitely feel like that is a very short book. Yeah, it's only 142 pages, so I'm gonna go with that. That's the one I first thought of off the top of my head, and Goodreads was no help at all there, so I hope that's the right answer, but don't be mad at me if I'm wrong. She's also asked me what my favourite tropes are. I love a good adventure story. I love the found family trope. I feel like that is such a nice thing to read about. I do also love people being cast away and then having to rebuild their life on their own terms. I feel like that's also very interesting, but it's something we don't really see a lot of. I'm just laughing to myself now because can you tell that these are my favourite books? Found family trope and an adventure story, and then we have someone being cast away and having to rebuild their life from scratch. These perfectly sum up what I love in books, to be honest, so I'm just going to point to these, and whatever's in these books are my favourite things ever. And then her last question is, what are your favourite book to movie adaptations? And she said congrats again, obviously, for hitting 1k, so thank you, Emily. Again, I will give you 2 seconds to go down in the comments right now and type in what you think my answer is going to be to this question. Have you guessed it yet? If not, I'm just going to tell you anyway. Of course, it's The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. What more did you expect? I feel like that's a silly question, Emily. The Lord of the Rings are my all-time favourite films. I rewatch them constantly, absolutely love them, cannot get enough of them, and they are just my absolute comfort films. If I had to choose something else, I would choose The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Those films meant the absolute world to me while I was growing up. I still watch them now and they just make me so happy. Also, fun fact, and something I probably didn't realise until later on in life, but C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were actually friends, and they did write their books at the same time, which is why there are so many similarities. So we have 4 hobbits, 4 children, they go on an adventure and a face-off against a dark foe, and yeah, they're both stories about how good overcomes evil and how love basically conquers all. And then this isn't specifically a film adaptation, but any of the ITV adaptations for Agatha Christie's books I absolutely love. Again, they're ones I keep going back to year after year. Every time they're on telly, I'll watch them and I just fall back in love with the story. They are so well done, and the murder mysteries are just so complex that no matter how many times I watch it, I just find so much enjoyment out of it. And I've just thought of another one, and that is Ready Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I haven't actually read the book yet, which I'm kind of ashamed to say. It's one that I definitely plan on reading very, very soon though, because the film is one of my favourite films of all time. The amount of times Tom and I rewatched that film is ridiculous, to be honest with you. We did first watch it in the cinema when it came out, and ever since then we have just been obsessed. I love the whole virtual reality gaming aspect of it, and I just find the concept so interesting. And yeah, if we're ever unsure of what film we want to watch, we do always just end up putting this one on. Right, that is the end of today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed that Q&A. I hope you got to know me a little bit better through that. I feel like these videos are really nice to get to know people a lot better. Thank you so much to everyone who sent me some questions. I really do appreciate it, and I had some really good ones there too. So yeah, thank you so much for sending them in. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like button as well as the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. Again, thank you to each and every one of you who've subscribed to my channel. It truly does mean the world to me. We are getting very close to 2K now as well, which is very exciting, and I will definitely do this type of video again once I hit that milestone. For now though, I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for watching. It truly does mean the world to me, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!